It's Thursday, September 10th, and this is now on HNN.
It's very stressful. It's an incredible strain on people's economic lives.
With beaches and parks open for solo activity only, some say that could mean more problems.
That's the real sad part of that order that the mayor made. It alienates people further.
According to her supporters, the whistleblower who exposed COVID-19 missteps at DOH is facing retaliation.
A couple of nameless people were saying that she was threatening violence against them.
They were actually driving through fire.
Out-of-control wildfires tear through several western states. I'm Chris Martinez with the efforts to put out the flames.
Here at home, a red flag warning is posted for extreme fire conditions. That's coming up on This Is Now. Jonathan and Ashley here, coming to you from the HNN Digital Center. Want to get started today with those latest numbers from the State Department of Health.
Hey everyone, health officials say 3 more patients with COVID-19 have died. DOH is also reporting 169 new cases today. The county breakdown shows 158 cases are on Oahu, 8 are on the Big Island, and 3 are on Maui. As we take a live look at Waimea Bay, Oahu parks, beaches, and hiking trails reopened today, but for individual activities only. Many who are eager to do outdoor activities again say the new rules don't make sense. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green agrees and is calling for changes to the order.
That they allow for people in a household to go if they're going to hike or at the beach, just to be safe. And it's just, you can't distinguish and send a kid out by themselves. You certainly don't get any benefit from that. And it's not based on medical advice or scientific advice to insist that only one member of a household go somewhere. They're already living together. And obviously, if there's going to be spread in that household, it's going to happen no matter what you do. So I do think that they're taking some conservative steps. It's important to knock the virus down, but that one doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't ring true with the people. And the other challenge that we have is we really need people to accept and respond positively to some of the things that are going on. It's very stressful. It's an incredible strain on people's economic lives. We shouldn't also alienate them from all the rest of the things that we're doing. And that's the real sad part of that order that the mayor made. It alienates people further. And I know they immediately said it's political. It's not political. You don't benefit from just sending one individual out. And if it takes more enforcement work, we'll do the enforcement work. But a husband and wife, or 2 people that care about each other, or a mom and their daughter, they have to be able to go out together.
When the mayor makes these announcements with the governor's approval, do they ever consult with you about your opinion on, what should happen?
Not very often. The mayor doesn't consult with me, if at all. I'm in a lot of those meetings. That I was out of that loop totally. Although a lot of good people pushed back on that, and I guess they just slammed it home. But that was ill-advised. I think that when you make a mistake, just fix it. It's not that big a deal. Overall, I'm not squawking about the overall plan. We do want to knock these numbers down so that we can open up sooner rather than later. And getting the numbers down, we had 169 cases today, many of them from the surge testing, but getting the numbers down is critical. So, okay, I'm down with that, but not at the expense of people's freedom. And this is just a bit too much for people. You saw how people responded even with that billboard. I mean, it's just coming time where we have to accept that people have needs. They have psychological needs during a crisis like this. And in order to get people to adhere to the more important things, like wearing masks, like answering the phone when we're contact tracing and testing people, in order to get people to adhere to that, we have to be fair to them. And this was obviously not fair to them. So that's why you're seeing pushback.
Right, and you touched on the numbers. We are seeing the number of new cases decrease slightly, but we've seen consistent reports of fatalities. What is that telling us?
Well, 2 things. The fatalities are catching up to us because those are the cases that were in the hospital already from the last 3 weeks when we had the big surge. Also, the high fatality count, and it's kind of heartbreaking over at the VA facility in Hilo, is because a lot of those people, the individuals that are patients there, They're very elderly, so they're extremely vulnerable. And also, this is a doctor thing, but they don't want to have advanced resuscitation. That's been a part of their desire to not do that, to not use a ventilator. And if COVID strikes and you're in your 80s and you can't have breathing support, the mortality rate's really, really high. So that's what's happening. That's why you're seeing the fatality numbers continue to bump up. I would say that should drop off in about 3 weeks in general. All of the data suggests that we'll be turning the corner now with lower numbers. Also, our hospitalization rate has dropped somewhat, which is very good. We're down closer to 240 cases in the hospital, down from a max of 318. So lots of good news, which is why I know we're making a lot out of this order, but I want people to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you, if you discourage them from any normalcy whatsoever, you will not get compliance, you will not get participation, and that's a big mistake. So I think that mistake should be fixed.
And you're saying, overall we're heading in the right direction. October 1st reopening, as of right now, how do you feel about it?
I think we should do it. I just got off the phone with the principals, and we'll see what the governor decides. I think we can do it safely. We're finalizing the minor details on which tests would count. Nucleic acid amplification test, that's the main tests. That should be enough. We'll maybe even offer a cheaper two-test stepwise approach where people can get a cheap test that's an antigen test before and after getting here. That would also work very well. That's not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is once we've turned the corner, making sure we restart our lives here, which is why it's a reflection on that order, people's businesses, going to the holidays. There's a lot of really big things on the line. So if we do it in a very modest way, October 1st is not a problem, in my opinion. We also have to eventually look at schools. That's another major thing in people's lives. So all of these things lead to one another, and delays delay everything. So I hope that we'll make that decision.
Thanks to the LG there for being with us today on This Is Now. Okay, let's now turn it over to Casey Lund. He's at Ala Moana Beach Park, seeing how folks are adjusting to the rule changes.
The sun was out, the trade winds were blowing. It was an absolutely gorgeous morning to be out at Ala Moana Beach Park, and really a day of celebration for swimmers and surfers who got out and got into the water. And it's not really that they weren't able to do that before. Of course, it was legal to cross and traverse beach parks to get into the water. It was a matter of access. And if you look along the roadway here, you'll see how many cars got out here this morning to get into the water and get a little exercise. Now, more people are able to do that. They don't have to fight over parking or go park at Ala Moana Center. And if we look at the park on the grass, you'll see that there really weren't a lot of people congregating, getting together in large gatherings or setting up tents or picnics, and that's what the city was hoping for. We got out here early this morning and talked to people who had varying opinions on the extended stay-at-home order and that amendment that allows for solo activity.
Thank God. Yeah, we're able to walk, and surfers don't have to, hop the fence. We're water people, so we should be able to access the park and the water. But as far as gathering, I don't think that's a good idea.
I can understand that during this period that they don't want people to gather, but it didn't make any sense to me that one of the reliefs that people have is to go out, enjoy the fresh air, to get some exercise in. And the previous lockdown to not allow people to be able to come to the park and exercise is probably not the greatest thing. But I'm happy now that they're allowing people to do that.
I think the administration is doing its best to try and decrease the number of cases and keep the hospitals at minimum capacity. Though that said, I do think that could be a little bit more lenient.
Back here on the beach, an amazing sight, really. Something we haven't seen legally happen on Oahu in weeks. People sunbathing, and that is okay to do as long as you're by yourself. But there are still criticisms and questions over that solo activity rule. My mind goes to a 94-year-old woman that we introduced you to back in March when the pandemic really got serious. Her only exercise each day was wading into the water over at Magic Island. But in order to do that, she needed the help of her son, who is in his 50s. Right now, that is still considered illegal. Reporting at Ala Moana Beach Park, I'm Casey Lund for This Is Now.
Oahu dine-in restaurants and non-essential businesses were hoping to reopen today, but now many of them are being forced to try to survive for the next 2 weeks on nearly zero revenue. What makes the pill even harder to swallow is that the state's COVID dashboard as of this morning says only 11 cases are tied to bars, clubs, and restaurants. And get this, the New York Times says Hawaii is the only state in the nation where retail stores are being forced to close because of COVID.
It just doesn't make any sense because there's big box retailers like Walmart and Target, and if you go there, it is so crowded, nobody is social distancing, whereas in our store, it's such a small space, but we're able to control that kind of atmosphere and like limit the amount of people.
That's why we urgently ask the government to reach out to the different stakeholders, industry leaders, to work together so that we can come up with a collective plan and avoid these type of shutdowns that appear blanket.
The Chamber of Commerce says retailers should at least be allowed to do pickup orders or deliveries. The group is urging city leaders to reconsider reopening some of the industry.
New claims against the Department of Health whistleblower who we're told was forced to go on leave as state sheriffs escorted her from her office. The claims allegedly involve guns and violence, but her supporters say it's retaliation and a smear. Mahealani Richardson reports.
I didn't know what to do. All of these people deserve the same attention and care that all of the other cases have received.
Jennifer Smith, a virologist and disease investigator, is the whistleblower who exposed the state's overwhelmed contact tracing program during a news conference arranged by Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard and in private meetings with state senators. Now her advocates say last Friday she was forced on paid leave.
I can talk all about it because I was talking to her as she was being escorted out by the sheriffs last week, and it was absolute garbage.
COVID testing leader Dr. Scott Miskovich said in a Facebook interview the department is accusing Smith of threatening gun violence, which he calls retaliation.
I got a call from poor Jennifer who was in tears, and she was saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. There is a sheriff here, and they're going to escort me out of the building and put me on administrative leave. They gave her a letter, which I do have a copy of, which is just like saying that she was threatening someone with guns or something. And she's like, doesn't have guns and doesn't, it was just saying that a couple of nameless people were saying that she was threatening violence against them. I mean, you want to talk about a classic whistleblower retaliation.
Last Friday, both Smith and her boss, state epidemiologist Dr. Sarah Park, were put on paid leave because of an investigation, according to sources.
Now, we asked the Department of Health for comment on this internal drama, and DOH would only say that Smith is on leave and no other information will be provided. Smith's union, HGEA, says it's aware of the allegation and is looking into it.
And just a little while ago, Smith released a statement through her attorney. Part of it says, quote, employees should not have to choose between protecting their careers through unquestioning loyalty to ineffective leadership versus asking for the tools to do the kind and quality of science necessary to stop the pandemic. Our job is saving lives, not saving face. I was forced to leave the department on September 4th when the faction protecting Dr. Park at what I believe is the cost of public health prevailed. Contrary to public statements made by others, the only thing I have ever threatened was the toxic management culture at the department, and that has directly impeded my and other epidemiologists' investigators' work.
Nearly 100 wildfires continue to ravage at least 6 western states. Chris Martinez reports from California.
Aerial scenes above Oregon show the devastating effect of multiple wildfires burning in the state. From the ground, you can see homes, cars, and playgrounds reduced to ash in Phoenix, a town nearly wiped out by flames.
We were actually driving through fire for a little bit there. We could feel the heat coming into our vehicles.
For weeks, firefighters in the West have been battling a relentless siege of wildfires. Just north of Sacramento, the North Complex West Zone fire destroyed the community of Berry Creek and killed at least 3 people. A dozen others are missing.
I just want to know where the rest of my family is.
Crews down in San Bernardino County worked overnight to keep flames from inching closer to mountain communities.
We made a stand here for these 3 homes, which would have probably lit off the whole neighborhood.
Here in Yucaipa, California, firefighters are starting to get a handle on the El Dorado fire, but many people remain evacuated from their homes. This Red Cross volunteer has been helping dozens of families forced to flee.
They come in and get registered, COVID screened, and then we provide them any supplies that they need.
In Washington, where more acres burned in a single day than in a typical year, Governor Jay Inslee has been touring impacted areas.
This is an extraordinary series of events we have suffered. They are the result of catastrophically dangerous climatic systems.
Firefighters are hoping for some weather relief today in the form of cooler, less windy conditions before more heat returns to the West Coast this weekend. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Yucaipa, California.
All right, we have some dry conditions here at home. We're going to turn it over to Guy Hoggy with an update on that red flag warning.
Aloha on this Thursday. The National Weather Service has posted a red flag fire warning. It goes into effect 10 this morning until 6 tonight. That means if a fire were to spark up, the conditions are such that those fires could spread rather quickly. We've got low humidity levels because of gusty winds, and those winds will be very breezy today, especially from Maui to Kauai. Lighter winds are over in Kona, but even lighter winds are due in for the rest of the state by tomorrow. Now, of course, rain would ultimately fix the situation with regard to the fires, but we're not going to get a whole lot of rain. Plus, the drought conditions continue for much of the state, extreme drought conditions for parts of Maui County. And that, of course, could lead to even more, the fire threat is even bigger. And there's not much rain out there. Upstream moisture is minimal. This morning we had a few light showers for a handful of windward spots, but really they didn't amount to very much. And we're going to see another beautiful day, though, with lots of sunshine. High temperatures running to about 89 degrees. The trade-ins will run breezy at 15 to 20 miles an hour. Sunset tonight is 6:38. Now, tomorrow we're going to get a weather change in that the winds will back off, and that means higher humidity levels will come up, and that will toss out that red flag fire warning. So today, the surf's going to be dropping for that North Shore swell. 3 to 5 feet up in the country, but on the way down for sure. The energy will be gone by tomorrow. And by tomorrow, though, the South Shore will begin to fill in with a new swell. Keep it here in Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
There's an alarming report about the decline of wildlife across the globe, and experts say where we get our food might be the culprit. Ian Lee reports, new at noon.
From the savannah to the sea, the world's wildlife is under threat. Everything from big game animals and birds to our favorite fish have had their populations decline nearly 70% in the past 50 years. The World Wildlife Fund released the report.
When we see this decline in wildlife, that we're really seeing an indicator of decline in the overall planet that we call home.
The organization monitored nearly 21,000 different species. It says the destruction of habitats, like rainforests, is one of the biggest culprits.
How we grow food around the world is the biggest driver of decline for terrestrial species that live in forests or grasslands.
Agriculture is to blame for up to 80% of the global deforestation. To help stop the trend, experts say we only need to look as far as our kitchen.
There are clearly decisions that each of us can make in terms of what we eat, what we buy, how we use energy, a lot of choices that we make that do ripple through the system.
By living a more sustainable life, we can preserve our natural wonders and the animals that live there for future generations. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
Let's turn to some good news now. Some very good news. It's finally game day. The NFL season kicks off today at 2 p.m. right here on KHNL with the Super Bowl champion Chiefs taking on the Texans in Kansas City. Jay Gray has more.
Here we go.
Super excited for the game. Yeah, I kind of tear up a little bit just thinking about it.
Kickoff now just hours away, but this season will be different. The league, like the country, dealing with COVID-19 and growing calls for justice reform and equality. Instead of more than 76,000 screaming fans on opening night, only 17,000 will be inside Arrowhead Stadium. Masks will be required, concessions limited, and those fans spread out.
I do believe that we'll be able to have more fans as the season goes on.
But of course, that depends on a lot of things that none of us can predict.
For it all to work, the players have to stay virus-free too. Of the 44,000 COVID tests the NFL administered between August 30th and September 5th, only one player and 7 team staffers had new positive results.
We, the National Football League,
believe Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Results are what many players expect, eager to use their platform to continue what has been a nationwide push for social change.
This needs to be informed, and we need to be the role models to go out there and take that step.
As they step on the field for the start of a season unlike any other in the history of the game. Now look, the NFL acknowledges these first few weeks of the season are in essence a test and that they may need to tweak some of the game day procedures. Some of that, of course, dependent on conditions and the spread of the virus outside the stadiums. In Kansas City, Jay Gray, this is Now.
Ooh, from the feeds time, guys. Let's see what the internet is talking about right now. You know, the National Toy Hall of Fame unveiled a list of its contenders. Check them out. Here's what's on the list, which could soon be in that Hall of Fame. Things as simple as sidewalk chalk and as high-tech as Tamagotchis. Things like Bingo, Yahtzee, Jenga, all contenders, along with Light Bright, which I was surprised is not already in the Hall of Fame, but it's not. A committee will choose 3, and then 3 others will be chosen by fans. You can vote for your finalists by September 16th. You have to do it by then at toyhalloffame.org.
I love all the toys you named. I owned all of them.
And you know, I'm a toy guy. We've mentioned it before, but my desk is covered in toys. And people on Facebook were asking me to show pictures, so here's just half of the desk.
Oh my!
So you got my micro machines. That's a Back to the Future micro machine there, and it is from my youth. And my Garfield alarm clock, all my little McDonald's toys, my collector's Swatch watches, and yes, I am aware I am a dork.
All those collectibles. They're going to be worth a lot someday.
Someday.
Yeah.
I'm old, so maybe now.
And we told you a lot about these auctions that are taking place with some really cool items. Well, the Sotheby's Auction House is holding its first ever hip-hop auction. Now, the auction, set for September 15th in New York, will include Salt and Peppa's iconic Push It jackets as a pair, valued between $12,000 and $15,000. There's also Notorious B.I.G.'s crown from the iconic 1997 King of New York photo shoot, valued between $200,000 and $300,000. Wow. Even love letters written by Tupac, valued between $60,000 and $80,000.
A cool auction there. Yeah, very cool.
And say goodbye to those iconic green straws you're used to drinking your Starbucks iced coffee with. The company has officially abandoned the straws in favor of sippy cup lids. Well, mostly. So I'll explain. So the newer modified lids have a drinking spout and contain nearly 10% less plastic than Starbucks' previous flat lid and straw combo. They're also made of polypropylene, which is recyclable. The company says it adds another step towards its goal of 50% reduction in waste by the year 2030. But those blended beverages like Frappuccinos, they'll still come with a domed lid and a straw.
I'm a fan. Down with the straws.
Small
Down
changes.
With the straws.
Yeah.
You have a programming note, right, Ash?
That's right. So because of the NFL today on KHNL, we